Alright guys, so today we're taking a look at the Eachine Novice 4. I finally got my hands on one of these, and I guess, a lot of the other channels are saying this is good for beginners possibly. Not 100% sure about that. It has good components as far as I can tell. Obviously the Radio Master TX12 is pretty good. I've reviewed that already. And also the Eachine DM800 goggles, they're pretty decent as well. I've also reviewed this as well, so I'm not going to go into these two components in depth in this video. I'll put links to those down in the video description if you want more details on that. Now, this being sold as a ready to fly kit, everything is already connected to each other, so there's no binding or anything that needs to be done. I have actually already tested that, and I just charged up the battery in the Radio Master. It actually comes with a built-in battery in the battery tray with two 18650 lithium-ion cells. Just charged up via the USB-C port on the top of the radio, and then I charged up the goggles with the included USB to barrel plug connector here, and there's also this USB wall adapter for the goggle USB cable. You get a wall adapter for the battery charger, the LiPo charger here, and that is for this guy right here. There's a barrel plug there, and then you just charge up the batteries via the balance lead right here. So my version is the 2 battery version. You get 2 of these 1100 milliamp hour 4S batteries. Looks like this. I think these are actually, they look very familiar. They look like kind of like the Outline batteries. They probably are. XD30 connector. There's also a 4 battery version of this, so obviously there's 4 slots here. If you want to go with a 4 battery version, I think they cost more. I'm not really sure which one's in stock currently, and I'm not 100% sure on the prices. I've checked a couple of times. They've been kind of switching around lately with promotions and discounts and stuff. You know how it is with Banggood. They typically do that. Here's the quad itself, and it comes flat, as you can see here in this little cutout, but you have to put the antenna in, and they have to put these little antenna tubes on, and putting it back in the box for transportation, obviously you have to pull that out. So it's not really designed for transportation. I didn't transport this in the case, but you can see here that I used a zip tie to hold those antenna tubes in place. Otherwise they'll flop around too much, because the 3D printed part for the antenna tube is too big. So a little bit of a mistake on their part there. So I just left like this. Battery goes on top, of course. There is a Insta360 Go mount, I think, for this in here. I'm sure for sure if it's the Go 1 or the Go 2. I don't have the Go 2, and my Go 1 only records for like a minute, so I'm not going to be using that in this video. Just going to get the analog video feed out of this guy. Single board here, all in one board for the flight stack. And pretty typical 1404 2750 kV motors. Obviously Eachine quality, not the best. The bearings are already shot on this guy. I'm not sure if you can hear that or not. They're pretty bad. GPS in the back here. The instructions say that GPS rescue is programmed in, so if you have a failsafe with the included D8 receiver, it's a Radio Master receiver, I think it's the R81, it will return to home, assuming you've got a satellite lock, and I think it won't let you arm unless you have a satellite lock, so should be okay. We'll test it out. I'll turn the radio off here, but probably best to also set up a return to home switch in the radio. The included instructions aren't too bad. They're actually pretty easy to follow along, so I'm not going to actually cover this in detail, but it does show all the switches in the radio, and also any settings you want to change. But as far as I could tell, nothing needed to be changed. It does show you like how the goggles work and stuff like that. It's pretty comprehensive. There's actually two double-sided pages in color, so no complaints about the manual. You should be able to follow along with that fairly easy. I didn't really find any gotchas in this one. Just show you which switches to use, to arm, disarm, etc. It's all in the included manual, so it's good to know. All right, so the rest of the stuff here, obviously just get some spare props, spare battery pad, You've got your patch antenna for the goggles, little screen wipe, analog out. I think this is an analog out cable. And then the other antenna here, the circular polarized antenna, is here for the goggle. So that's about it. Let's plug everything in and take it for a fly. All right, so something that might need a little bit of clarification on how it works is in the manual, it's the buzzer, the lost model alarm buzzer. So it's in the manual here. You can read it later if you want, but I'll just show you how it works because it's different from a typical lost model alarm. So the lost model alarm on here, let's go ahead and plug this in. When you power it on, it's not activated. So try and use the switch here. Nothing happens. You have to actually turn it on. So the red light means it's off. Press the button here for 2, 3. There you go. Hold for 2, 3 seconds. Hear that tone. Now it's activated. And now we can use the switch here to activate the buzzer. It's extremely loud. And now it is active. So if you don't do that after you power it on, you don't activate the buzzer, you take off and you crash and the battery's ejected, the lost model alarm will not be working, so it won't beep. So you have to actually manually activate it. That's what's different about this one from other lost model alarms that are automatically activated on power up. This is not the case. Now, once you do activate it, if you have a crash and the battery's ejected and it loses power, it will activate after about 30 seconds. And then to deactivate it, you just press the button. Again, when you land, so go ahead and turn it off. The lost model alarm will start beeping in about 30 seconds if you don't deactivate it. So basically you just press and hold the button again for 2 or 3 seconds and you'll get the tones and it'll be deactivated. There you go. Now it's deactivated and it is turned off. So it works the opposite of the way of a traditional lost model alarm that you've seen on the channel before. So wanted to point that out in this part of the video in case it's a little confusing in the instructions. All right, so the wind has picked up quite a bit here. It's fairly strong. It's a point here. It's coming from this direction at approximately 10 to 15 miles an hour. Pretty steady. But this little guy ought to be able to handle that no problem. Now, despite the bearings on the motors not sounding so great, the props and everything tuned, they sounds okay. Not the greatest, but you can do a little bit of acro with this if you want. Yeah, you can see the wind here and a little bit of prop wash. All right, so this isn't really meant for acro, so I just mainly wanted to see what the tunes sounded like in the wind here. I have 7 satellites. It didn't take too long to get a lock. It was about a minute. So I was just sitting there, obviously waiting for the satellites to lock. Let's see here if the return to home arrow is working. Seems like it. Yeah, it's pointing in the right direction. Going back to me over here. Yeah, I'm recording this on the goggle itself. If you short press the record button, it just takes a photo. And you want to long press it, and then that will give you a red dot in the upper right-hand corner. It'll know that you're recording. Now the wind's picking up even more now. It's probably about 20 miles an hour. You can probably hear that in the microphone because the wind muff can't block everything. Wow, it's really picking up. It's really windy now. I just wanted to make sure that the return to home, or the return to home arrow looks okay. So this is just, D8. This is a D8 receiver, nothing special. RSSI is, going to fluctuate quite a bit. Wow, it's really windy. This is really crazy. So I picked a time here where there's no people around, so in case I test this return to home and it just drops out of the sky, I won't be harming anybody. I'm gonna try it over here. So I'm about 200 meters away. The video is pretty decent. Not surprising. I remember from my review of this goggle, the reception was decent on this goggle. It's just that I think that some people had a hard time seeing the screen, although I have no problem seeing the screen. It's pretty decent. Pretty good image. Wow, this wind is bad. Whoa. What is up with this wind? Oh my God. My glasses are getting blown off here. Amazingly, the quad seems to be fine. Ah, shoot. All right, I'm gonna have to bring this back and pick up my glasses. Hold on a second. Oh, flipped over. All right, let's try this again. Yeah, these are some pretty windy conditions. I'm a little concerned this is going to fly away on me here. All right, let's get some altitude here. And I'm going to turn the radio off. Okay, it's not letting me turn the radio off. I think I have to confirm. Crap. Okay, you know what? I'm going to land this and then I'm going to set up GPS rescue on here on a switch, because I forgot that this requires confirmation on the transmitter to turn it off. Okay, that sucks. All right, actually, I realized, oh, I just have to hit the scroll wheel. I forgot that that's where the enter button is on this radio. So let's try this one more time. Nine satellites now, so I should have a pretty good lock on the home point. All right, slow it down. Turn off the radio, RX loss. There, it's coming back. And the beeper's going like crazy. I'm gonna turn the radio back on here. So it doesn't look like it's gotten the signal back. Is it landing? I think it's trying to land right above me. Oh, okay, there we go. So I forgot that I was armed. So I disarmed, and then that gave me back control of the radio, and then I rearmed. So it looks like it just like came back to the home point and just hovered. It did not try and land, which was interesting. So there must be something in the settings that just keeps it up there. So turn to home works. GPS rescue works. I guess I shouldn't really call it return home. Let's see how far I can get in terms of the video here. I'm pointing my patch antenna off in this direction. So it looks like this receiver is that's got a pretty good range for a D8 receiver. Look at this, video is pretty good for analog this distance out on this particular goggle. Really can't complain. Not exactly sure what power level we're on here on this video transmitter. I think it's only like 350 milliwatts. The RSSI is hovering around like 40-ish. Okay, the video is kind of bad now. Here, 600 meters away. So, advertised for long range, but obviously you're gonna need like a long range receiver if you want to really do long range. But this radio, you can put a multi-module or actually an external module in here. Because that little beep there is basically saying that telemetry loss, something like that. It's like low signal. It's not fail-safing at this distance. But I don't feel like walking way over there. If I lose video, I'm gonna bring it on back. I think I should set up a GPS, return or GPS rescue switch. I think I'll do that for a future video. It should be pretty simple to do. Just add that in Betaflight. Yeah, I think it's added to like one of the switches that aren't being used. But yeah, it's flying great in this wind. It's I was not expecting it to fly this good in the wind. This wind is pretty gnarly right now, but it's not like bobbing around or anything. Based on the video, you would think that there's hardly any wind at all, but there's a lot of wind right now. So this is doing really well. And so far about 9 minutes of flight time on this 1100 4S. 14.7 volts. Now, regarding this and whether or not it's appropriate for a first timer, if this is your first quad, I think you'll have fun with it until you crash it. And if you crash it on anything other than like something like the soft grass on the soccer field here, you're gonna break an arm. The arms are really skinny and thin. I mean, it's meant for long flight times, so they've reduced the weight. So obviously durability is not the greatest on this. So if you do happen to get this as your first time kit, fly over a soccer field with like soft grass, and hopefully if you do end up crashing, it'll survive. But if you fly over concrete or flies at a bando, anything with like, concrete walls, brick walls, you're for sure going to break an arm. And as far as I know, there's no spare parts as of yet. If they offered spare replacement arms, then maybe it could be viable. The switching the arms isn't going to be that difficult. I think it's like 2 or 3 screws, and you can just swap it out. And obviously the motors, you have to swap, you just move it over. But, if you're getting this as a first timer, you don't want to be crashing this. So as long as you're not crashing it, seems like it's fine. It flies really nice. It has a decent tune, surprising. I didn't really check if it had anything special in the tune or not, but it looks like it's got a tune that works. But of course they've copied a formula out there for the 4-inch long range that's been out for probably close to a year now. And this is a known quantity, and the kinds of flight controllers and parts and everything you'll need, props, motors, in order to get a decent performance. So they probably just copied settings from another 4-inch quad that's out there. Yeah, and wow, we're at 11.5 minutes. So yeah, 10-minute flight time is no problem with this. Of course, if you're going to carry like a Insta360 Go or a naked GoPro, you're going to probably have a lower flight time. So keep that in mind. It's going to reduce your flight time a little bit. But if you're, maybe getting into FPV and you're kind of like curious about this long range stuff, this is not a bad kit to get. The price, not 100% sure. I mean, the radio is about $85. The goggles are about $85. The radio, I think, is around $90 to $100. So at this price point, you're paying like about $250 for the quad, plus the batteries, the chargers. So yeah, I think that's about it. All, yeah, for all that and the case. So that's what you're paying for. So, I mean, obviously you could get everything separately and put it together yourself, but if you're obviously a first timer, you're not going to know how to do any of that stuff. So, you know, the good thing is that the components are decent. The goggles are good. Radio is good. So if you do crash and burn the quad and it's not flyable anymore, you could, well, assuming that the parts are electronics, you could move over the parts to a different frame. There's a lot of 4-inch frames out there that you can move the parts over probably, in case there are no spare parts for the frame. Or if you damage the electronics, then you could easily get another quad and move the receiver over to that and use the goggles and radio with that other quad, other bind and fly or plug and play. So there's options if you happen to do get this, but you know, you're going to need to know how to do those things, and that's sort of the downside with these ready-to-fly kits is at some point you're going to have to learn how to do some soldering and part swapping and stuff like that. So, you know, it's one way to approach this is you could buy this and then fly it, learn. Obviously, I would recommend learning on a simulator. This radio does work on a simulator. Do that first. And, you know, get some use out of the quad. And then learn, you know, how to make repairs if you happen to break anything. But, you know, if you're going to be getting this kit, I recommend just kind of flying around like I'm doing here, just kind of higher up, cruising around. You know, maybe getting some HD footage if you're going to be using the naked GoPro. And as long as you're not too close to the ground or too close to objects, you're flying in decent conditions, not in crazy winds like this, you should be okay for the most part. Anyway, my battery's low here. I got a low battery warning. 14 minutes of flight, that's just crazy. Not bad. If you're looking for a long flight time quad, this one is definitely fits the bill for that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Talk to you guys later.